I don't think I have been more excited to record a video because I'm talking about my favorite topic today, and that is poetry and what goes into a good poem in the modern world. This video is going to be in 6 parts, so let's go. We're going to start off with one of my favorite poems of all time, and I first heard it in my 9th grade English literature class, and it's This Is Just to Say by William Carlos Williams.
This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me. They were delicious. So sweet and so cold.
It's not really a rhymey poem. I mean, it kind of rhymes, like breakfast and delicious, eaten and were in. Like it kind of has like those subtle rhymes, but it's not really a rhyme-based poem. But I love the simplicity of it and just the few words that are chosen to evoke such vivid imagery. Moving on to my next one of my favorite poems of all time. So this one is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost.
Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
It gives me the chills every single time. I think the cadence of it is perfect, and I love how it is a 16-line story. And I love the effective rhyming of this poem. I feel like the rhymes are like creepy and eerie, similar to the poem itself. You can literally hear the snow and the wind when you read this poem. Now we're gonna go into part 2, and I wanna talk about notable musicians that are poetic as heck. So the first one, if you know me, you know I'm a huge Nirvana fan. I named my cat Nirvana after the band Nirvana. But anyways, I think Kurt Cobain and his lyrics, he's really good at using just the most simple language, but evoking so much pain.
I'm not like them, I can't pretend. The sun is gone, I haven't light. The day is done, I'm having fun. I think I'm dumb, maybe just happy. Maybe just happy.
I love how simple but painful this is. So now we're gonna go to Lana Del Rey, and I think Lana is the queen of contrast. Like, she is just a poem in itself, but I think she's so great because a lot of her songs, like, you know, it's like violins, it's like a beautiful orchestra of music and all these sounds, but she talks about like really trashy and dark topics, and I love that contrast.
For men who are older, it's always been, so it's no surprise. Love is in the sky with diamonds, and it's making me crazy. Become alive. All he wants to do is party with this pretty baby. Yeah, come on, baby, let's run. We can escape to great sunshine. I know your wife and she wouldn't mind. We made it out to the other side. Come on, come on.
And her saying, I know your wife and she wouldn't mind, is like, just like the hints at the infidelity that are going on right here. Like, it's so trashy, but also she's like contrasting it with like some classy imagery, like in the sky with diamonds and partying with your pretty baby. Like, she's just the perfect balance of like classy and trashy, and it's art. I also want to give a shout out to Video Game.
Swinging in the front yard, pull up in your fast car, whistling my name. Open up a beer, say get over here and play your video games. I'm in his favorite sundress, watching me get undressed, take that party downtown. I say you're the bestest, leaning for a big kiss, put his favorite perfume on, go play a video game.
She's painting an image of this trashy guy. He swings up, he pulls up in his fast car, pulls in, grabs a beer, plays a video game, like that stereotypical guy. And then here, she's this classy lady in her sundress with her perfume. Now we're gonna go into part 3, which is modern writing and effective writing. So while there is poetry that is timeless, it's still important to be aware that we're not in the 1500s, so we don't need to write like Shakespeare. We don't need to show how many fancy words that we know. In modern times, in modern music, in modern poetry, in modern writing, in modern storytelling, simplicity is vital. You've probably heard, and if you haven't heard, this is something to take note of. In modern communication, studies show that for effective writing, you want to keep it at a low grade, like reading level. I've seen people claim anywhere between like 4th grade and 8th grade reading. So you want to use easy words, simple ideas, and short sentences. That's what works in this storytelling era. So obviously, to have an effective poem, you want to have effective writing. So that's the purpose of this blip. So now, part 4. What is the purpose of a poem? The purpose of a poem is to convey some sort of emotion / feeling / idea in an abstract way. What do you think the purpose of a poem is? I didn't Google this. I didn't look at this online. This is my opinion. So this part is going to be the most substantial part, and that is what makes a good poem. Poetry is a form of artistic expression, so I'm hesitant to label like anything as good or bad, but there are elements of poems that make them more effective. So in this segment, I'm gonna go over a list of elements that I believe are vital in a good poem. You don't need to use all of these elements in a single poem, but they are good to consider. Maybe you have multiple, maybe you only have one. We're gonna get to showing versus telling. So in a poem, it's important to show the concept rather than tell the concept. So I love using the example of a poem that I had written that I turned into a poetry video. As I was like going through the process of revising this poetry video, I realized that my poem was telling too much instead of showing. The emotion that I was trying to convey was the loneliness of being in a new city by yourself, just kind of feeling out of place in life in general, like trying to search for that feeling of home. The original poem, I was just kind of like writing out all of these things I did by myself. And I'm talking in the poem like about just like, I go to the beach by myself. I go out to eat by myself. Then as I was revising the poem, I realized that using the metaphor of life being a comedy and I just forgot to laugh, that's an abstract way to show the emotion of just feeling lonely and isolated. And so I thought that, so metaphors are a good way. The point is, the TLDR is metaphors are a really good way to show. This is another element, and this is rhyming, obviously, surprise, surprise, but this is kind of a longer segment because rhyming is very important, but very tricky, very nuanced, and takes a lot of practice. So first I want to start off with like not being corny. If you try too hard to rhyme exactly in your poems and your focus of the poem is to make every single last line rhyme, it's gonna be corny. You have to prioritize the emotion and the idea, not the rhyme. So for example, this is a shitty poem that I had ChatGPT come up for me. Your smile's the sun, it lights up my day. I'd cross the ocean just to hear you say, you're my moon, my stars, my everything true. Without you, my sky would never be blue. So maybe this would be good in like a baby book. Sometimes if you use exact rhyme schemes, like, I don't know, it can give like a Dr. Seuss effect. It just has to be effective. It has to be effective. That's why I say it's so nuanced, but we'll keep diving into it. So there is one poetry community that I'm a part of called r/OC Poetry, which stands for Original Content Poetry. I'm a fangirl over this poem that some random user posted. I actually have it saved. I think that this is a really good example of using rhyming in a way that flows and it hits, but it's not corny and it like doesn't rhyme exactly. We can do this dance in the dark and imagine we're both hotties. I don't want you to see beneath my clothes. Don't want you to see my body. I know nowadays it's cringe to not like yourself, but fuck it. I'll be cringe anyways. It's all the same. I could be beautiful for all you know. I should think I'm beautiful, they all say. Love myself for me, since one is wanting to get better, such a scandalous sin. Since one is flaunting all our flaws so tantalizing. Did I miss the memo? Should we just let it go? Let go? Let ourselves go? But I'm fat and I'm shy and a nervous wreck and don't want you to see my rolls or see me biting off my nails. So I think right here, the idea is prioritized and not the rhyme. Like when the rhyme comes, the rhyme comes. Another way to have an effective rhyme scheme is by using non-rhymes to add emphasis. So excerpt from Dumb by Nirvana.
We float around, hang out in clouds, then we'll come down, have a hangover, have a hangover.
I think it's just so good, like the simple rhymes, like the very simple, easy, dumb rhymes. Around, clouds, down, and then hangover. Number 3 element is wordplay. Wordplay is effective and can amplify emotion. So using plays on words like double entendres, like Eminem is the king of wordplay in my humbled opinion. So if you want inspiration or want to know what wordplay is, like literally listen to any Eminem song. But this is me being pulling a little bit of a narcissistic move and using an example of a poem that I had written that kind of has wordplay. I wrote this for someone that I was asking to be my Valentine one year. And I thought it would be cool to use the word night in a bunch of different ways, like good night, midnight, all night, every night, last night, like using that kind of wordplay. So here's the poem. I met you on that one day in December at night, and we got lost all night, and now we've talked on the phone until morning, but still said good night, and we've made dinners past midnight, and we've laughed all night, and we've stayed up talking all night. And you've held me all night, and we've fucked all night, and we've even fought all night. And I just wish I could see you every night, and we could play 20 questions at cute bars like we did the other night. And I love it when you spend the night. And by the way, I kicked your ass during game night last night. But I want to know, will you be my Valentine tonight? I don't know. You let me know if you think it sucks. So number 4 element is contrast. So contrast is always a great tool in effective storytelling. Like for example, during a movie, if there's like a murder scene, like for example in The Strangers, during one of the scenes when like the guy, like the masked murderer is going through the house, like there's like this happy kind of like country folk song playing. And that contrast of the elements of a happy folk song versus like this creepy masked murderer walking through this house, it evokes the creepiness emotion versus like if there was just like that stereotypical like dun 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 dun, you know? Just having that contrast of elements is really good to make the emotion pop. Okay, so I also think, although Lana, I have said, is I think the queen of contrast, I think Nirvana is also incredibly good at contrast. So for example, I want to bring up the piece of work that the beans piece. Beans, 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 Jesse ate some beans. He was happy, happy, happy that he ate some beans. Sitting naked, 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 sitting cross-legged. And he was happy, happy, happy that he ate some beans. Wine, wine, wine. Jesse ate some wine. He was happy, happy, happy that he ate some wine. it's just very contrasty because he's using the word happy, happy, happy. But like when you imagine someone just like eating beans and drinking wine naked on the ground, that's the most depressing scenario. There's so many different ways to use contrast, so it's very nuanced. You kind of have to figure out what you want to do. All right, the next element, the coming full circle effect. So it's important to have like an intro, a body, and a conclusion in any piece of writing, whether it's like music or an essay or like a poem. And that intro, body, and conclusion can be represented and manifested in a lot of different ways. But I think coming full circle and kind of like having the poem start one way and you take the viewer, the reader, the consumer through an adventure and it kind of pulls it back into the beginning. And the poem that I'm going to use for this example, it's not a famous poem, but it's one that I recently read on r/OC Poetry. And I think it does the full circle effect beautifully. Trigger warning because it references like addiction and substance abuse and like recovery struggles. The bottle sits where I always leave it. Plastic, childproof, rattling with memories. I haven't touched the others in a year. Not the Oxy, the Perks, the Adderall. Not the lines I'd lay out on the bathroom counters. Chopped fine like the pieces of my life. But Clonopin, that one stays. I still swallow it raw, still feel its cold grip when my chest tightens and the world turns sharp. It doesn't get me high, but it keeps me here. There were days I didn't want to stay. Days when the weight of sobriety felt heavier than the addiction ever did. Because no one tells you how loud the cravings can be when everything else is quiet. I remember the Perks, the way they softened the edges, turned my mind to silk. I remember the Adderall, how it made me feel like I could move mountains even as it buried me underneath them. And the Oxy, God, the Oxy, a warm hand on the back of my neck, pulling me under until I couldn't tell if I was floating or drowning. But I remember the wreckage too, the jobs I lost, the friends I pushed away, the nights I woke up choking on my own vomit, gasping for air like it was something I didn't deserve. And now every day I hold the pill bottle and wait. I wait for the voices to come. Junkie, loser, addict. They say you'll never be free, and maybe they're right. Because every day is still a fight. Every hour is a fucking war. But I've made it a year of coffee instead of Coke, of mornings instead of come downs, a year of holding the line when everything in me wants to cross it. My friends don't hate me anymore. My family doesn't flinch when I walk into a room. They still watch me though, like I'm a glass they're afraid will shatter, and maybe I am, but at least I'm still standing. So I put the bottle down again. I stare at it, feel its weight in my palm, and remind myself, I like who I am now. I like that I'm here. It's not easy. It's never fucking easy, but it's worth it. 1 year sober, and today, the bottle stays closed. Mic drop. It's so good. Whoever wrote this, like, it starts out with the bottle sits where I always leave it. Plastic, childproof, rattling with memories. I haven't touched the others in a year, blah, blah, blah. And then now we're back to the pill bottle. But the pill bottle stays closed. So yes, trying to have your poems start at one point and end at another point, but somehow the beginning and the end are related in some way or fashion, that's really good. Now part 6, we're about to wrap it up. I'm so sad, this was so much fun. But part 6 is about practice and process. So if you're here because you want to dive into the world of poetry, then this part is for you. And if you already have a process, let me know yours in the comment section. But I'm gonna kind of say mine, and I think that this is kind of probably like a widely accepted process. But step 1 is brain dump, weekly or daily. It'll probably start out weekly, but like For me, I have more ideas than time, which I think actually like a lot of people do. I'm probably not the only one with that problem. And the importance of this is whenever you have like an inspiration, like say you're going on a walk, or you're at a stoplight, or you're laying down before bed and something comes to you. A lot of the time, maybe there's something artistic or whatever that comes to you, you just let it go and you never think about it again. The important part here is you need like a panel or like a document where you can just like brain dump any bits of inspiration that you have that come to you at any point throughout the day. Because the point is to use inspiration. And inspiration is found spontaneously versus like just sitting at your computer trying to think of inspiration. Like, trust me, that's really, really hard. I mean, people do it, but usually the inspiration is supposed to be natural and it does come to you. You just have to learn to listen to it and not let the inspiration like come and go. Once you have it, grasp that shit and put it into your brain dump document. Because then when you're ready to write, you pull from that brain dump. Let me go to my brain dump. I'll think of like poetry one-liners like randomly throughout the day, or like I'll just think of an idea and I write it down. And then when I'm ready to like sit down and create something, I go to like my database of like all of these random bits of inspiration that I've had throughout the days, the weeks, and I pull from that and then I elaborate on it. So sometimes poems or pieces of work are created over several days because the inspiration it'll have like its seed and then it fully develops over the course of like days or weeks. But then other times it literally just flows out of me. I've been writing poetry for so long, it's like as natural to me as breathing in a way. Like a lot of the times when I do have an idea, and if it's like a concept or emotion that I'm feeling really strongly, it can just pour out of me. Because it's my method of releasing my emotions. Everyone has their own like outlet for how they release their emotions. Writing happens to be mine. The key here is like, if you do want to get into poetry, you can't just be like sitting at your computer being like, what am I going to write a poem about? I guarantee you, like all of those masterpieces that I just showed you, like the famous poems, like the ones that have notoriety in society, I do believe that those were created from real life circumstances and feelings. I don't think it was just like Kurt Cobain like sitting in his journal like, what should I write today? Like, no, that man had like so much going on in his mind that he was probably inspired by so many different intense feelings that he was having that it just came out in writing. I do think a lot of art is developed from like actual genuine spontaneous inspiration, not just like trying to think of art. Yes, sometimes. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying that never happens. I just think as someone that has like seen my work come to life and has made work come to life, it's always been something that I've like been genuinely inspired by, like in real life. So I think a big part of it is keeping track of your inspiration. And as you start to like create more, it'll start to flow more easily out of you. Like an object in motion stays in motion. An object sitting stays sitting. I probably butchered that, but you get it.